an opportunity as we thank you, Olivia. There'll be an opportunity to ask questions towards the end, and we'll run through the information first. And if there's anything that isn't clear, please feel free to ask. But there will be a Q&A section at the end too. Just to start with, I'm going to invite you to do a grounding exercise with us. And this is an invitation. If it's not something that you want, you feel comfortable doing, just maybe spend a moment just doing something that you know helps you to feel like you've landed where you are and grounded in your body. But this is a 5 senses grounding exercise, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So start by naming 5 things that you can see. You needn't do it out loud unless you want to, but just to sort of name around you. What can I see? For example, my house plant, or I can see the spring. And then naming 4 things that you can hear. So it might be that you can hear the heating whirring, or a distant voice, or some birds outside. Just checking in with that sense right now. And then 3 things that you can feel, and I'm talking about the touch sensation here. So it might be the feeling of the texture of the chair that you're sitting in, or could be that you could rub your fingertips together. It might be something else, the texture of the clothes on your skin, or something else. 3 things. And then 2 things that you can smell. And 1 thing that you can taste. Perhaps the taste of your tea, or something else. Okay, and then just noticing how that feels to have done that exercise, just to have grounded for a short time in those senses. And I offer that as an example of one of the kinds of exercises that we do on our 10-step programs, and just a helpful way to arrive.
Thank you so much, Becky, for sharing that. Before we dive into details about the 10-step programs we'll be offering in April, we want to give a little background on Good Grief Network. We also refer to it as GGN quite frequently. GGN was founded in 2016 by Laura Schmidt and Amy Lewis Rowe. GGN creates a space where people can gather in community, process the painful feelings and realities over time, and orient our lives towards meaningful action. GGN's primary model is a peer-to-peer model for support groups. The 10-step program is our flagship program, but we also offer a journaling program, facilitation trainings. We also have GGNZ programs, which is geared towards teens. And then we also have workshops and presentations throughout the year. So far, we've trained over 80 facilitators across 18 countries. And you may have heard of our work in Time Magazine, NBC, New York Times, the LA Times, just to name a few the sources that have mentioned our work. Next slide, please, Becky. So in GGN, we pull inspiration from many different works and is the foundation of the 10 steps. Today, we'll be sharing one of our favorites. If we do not figure out how to acknowledge the reality that we are experiencing great losses, and if we do not find ways to witness each other as we grieve and hold the tenderness of being alive during a pandemic, civil unrest, systematic oppression, and climate change, we will continue to harm one another. If we stuff our tears down into our bodies, repressing what most needs to be expressed, we will die from broken hearts and unprocessed grief. Michelle Cassandra Johnson, Finding Refuge.
You, Olivia. And just taking a moment to take that in and notice how that lands in you as you hear it. I'm just going to speak for a moment about the predicament that we're in. This constitutes as the first step of the 10 steps. And there's a quote here: "This time represents a critical crossroads for humanity, a teetering point of choice that will determine the future of all life," from Sherry Mitchell in Sacred Instructions. And what we're wanting to just very lightly point to, because we go into more depth in this in the steps, is that we have big, deep and long-term issues that we are working with as part of the predicament that we're in. They overlap the social injustices, the biodiversity crisis, the climate crisis. The magnitude is global, it's massive, and it impacts everybody to different degrees. And there's an increasing pace of those issues. So right now they're worsening over time and will continue to. And the reason that this is our first step is because we, in order, as Britt Ray puts it in Generation Dread, eco distress needs to rise to the surface and be met head on for the transformative work to begin. And just to let you know what the arc of those steps are, we do spend the first 3 steps, which is the first 3 weeks of the program, looking at exactly what it is that we are asked to be with in the times that we're living in. And so that's how severe things are, how uncertain, and how what the impact on our own mortality and that of other people as well, and other beings. So there's a really looking at what it is we're dealing with to start with. And then steps 4 through to 7 are about the process, the internal processes, and the ways that we can support ourselves with those processes that help us to build resilience, help us to be with the difficult feelings that are inevitably going to arise in response to the crisis that we're in. So there's a deep dive into looking at what our own patterns are, being in community with that, having less of a sense of isolation with that, and also practices that help to support us to build resilience in that context. And then the final 3 steps, 8 through to 10, are more about, okay, so given the situation collectively, what we're facing and the ways that we've collectively participated, how do we show up for this and reinvest in meaningful efforts? So there's a week per step. The reason that we do this work in community and with others is because we are deeply social beings, wired to connect, and because it's too much for one person to try and be with all of this stuff alone. Although it's quite common for people to feel that individual responsibility. And so we're trying to draw on the power of the collective, a little bit like the way that one voice can be very beautiful, but the collective voices of a choir can create something even more magnificent. We're drawing on collective creativity, perspectives, innovation, and in that context, we're also accountable to each other and we can provide support and grow together. And we know that it's a practice. So oftentimes being in community isn't something that a lot of us have had the practice of. And so we offer this space to practice that too. And so there's a quote here: we all yearn to be fully seen and connected, to have a place where we can show up and be witnessed in our messiness as well as our beauty. And so what we're creating in a 10-step program is a space to share and be seen and be witnessed. And there are key elements to that listed here. Every single session, we kind of bring in these elements. And on a 10-step program, you will be offered a lot of suggested resources. So there might be reading, things to watch, things to listen to. There'll be poetry offered. And another key element would be that we're slowing down with this. We're not rushing and reacting to what's going on. We're finding a way to slow down just so that enough that we can really take in what's happening for ourselves and around us. And one of the ways that we do that is by providing this as a kind of ritual space. And by that, I mean that we are using the same form every week. There's a particular way that the sessions are held that repeats. So everybody knows where they are and what to expect. And some of those things that we provide, as well as the poetry and the resources, are grounding exercises like the one we did at the beginning of this session. We offer the sharing space brings with it deep listening, which is part of that ritual. And I will explain a little bit more about that in later slides by what I mean by that. And we're looking at ways of co-regulating. And again, that's speaking to the fact that we're in community, we're listening to each other and bearing witness, and being seen can reduce feelings of isolation. And we're wanting to, with that, be able to learn to and encourage each other to stay with the tension so that we can grow our distress tolerance. We can find more ways to be with difficult feelings and difficult issues. Terry Tempest Williams. This is quite a challenging thing to do, to really bear witness. And we want it to be non-judgmental, and with all of these elements, we hope that provides an emergent space for novel ideas. So when we really give the space, then new ideas can come in. A couple of things here about how we're the ideas behind sharing spaces. So two pieces. One, that this is a peer support model, and that's that the spaces are facilitated by 2 flow facilitators who've been trained for over 30 hours. And they've been trained to hold the space and to be guides, so to keep everybody on track and to make sure that the container is held, and that people are, everybody's doing what we've all agreed to do in this space. But the facilitators aren't mental health professionals or providing any kind of psychotherapy. And although sometimes people say that they find these kinds of sharing spaces therapeutic, that's not the aim of what we're doing here. And of course, without people participating, that's a really important part of this. Everybody's participation is really key. And there's a little bit of a diagram here about why we think that sharing spaces are important. We are looking at fostering support, connection, solidarity by creating such a brave and emergent space. And the reason that, sharing spaces promote that sense of belonging They allow us to build a capacity for collective empathy and empathy for ourselves, expand our perspective and insight, reduce feelings of isolation and disconnection. And we really want people to feel seen and heard in their joys and their struggles, the full range of experience that we may have as humans. And we're increasing our emotional wellness by creating spaces that we can name and process those overwhelming feelings. Sometimes it can be helpful to talk a little bit more about what the difference is between a sharing and a discussion space, because of course discussion spaces are also really helpful, also things that we might want to engage with in the times that we're in. That isn't what we're offering in a 10-step program. We're offering a sharing space just to sort of look at what the difference is there. A sharing space is a space where people are free to say anything about how they're feeling. And it's time limited so that everybody gets an opportunity to share if they want to. So in a 10-step meeting, the first round of sharing would be up to 3 minutes each. And those shares are they're there to be heard and witnessed. So you tell your story and what it is that you're with in response to one of those steps that we just went through. And in response to that, for that not to be fixed, pathologized, or offered a solution to, but more just to be heard. And in that space, we don't offer more than a simple acknowledgement in response, because we want everybody to feel heard equally. But we do offer an acknowledgement so that people do feel heard. So very brief, thank you. Thank you for that, Olivia, for example. We hope that it creates space for everyone to share if they want to. And everyone has the opportunity to share once before anybody shares twice. A discussion space is the sort of thing you might see between each other. You would be directly responding and staying on topic with what other people are talking about. You wouldn't necessarily acknowledge if somebody had just spoken, because you'd be listening to respond. And not everybody necessarily enters into that discussion. So there's a very different set of goals with discussion spaces. They're about exploring a variety of perspectives, deepening understanding of content, or gaining new insights or solutions for collaborative discourse. All really, really helpful. A sharing space has got a different set of goals though, which is about fostering support, connection and solidarity. And that's what we're looking at doing in a 10-step space. And we have a no crosstalk guideline, and crosstalk is a way of a kind of umbrella term for responding to what people have said by directly commenting, offering a solution, offering advice, offering a fix, having an opinion about it. And so just to sort of outline, we're not here to fix each other in these spaces. We're bearing witness to each other's journey in order to raise consciousness about the predicament that we're in. And these big feelings need a witness and not a solution. And we know that when if people know that they're not going to be responded to in that way, it can free us up to speak our truths more openly. Really, really speak what's on our mind and heart. So that's one of the reasons that we do it, because we want people to feel that they can speak their truths, what you might not have had the space to say otherwise. And this is countercultural, most of the time we aren't asked to listen without responding. We're usually asked to listen so that we can respond in some way. So that, again, there's a practice with this. It isn't something that a lot of us are used to. we do another thing that is probably a word to bring in that's probably quite useful to clarify is springboarding is a slightly different thing, where we might acknowledge that something someone said has resonated with us, but in order to then speak from our own experience. So, for example, I might say, gosh, when Olivia shared about how angry she was, it reminded me of how angry I am. And my experience of that is that would be a springboarding. If I was to say, oh gosh, when Olivia shared how angry she was, I thought about, I wondered if you'd ever tried any breathing strategies for that, Olivia. There would be a really different thing. So I'm kind of offering a solution or advice for Olivia's feelings rather than actually just letting Olivia have the feelings that she's had and then talking about my own experience. So just to clarify the difference, you know, springboarding would be turning inward and sharing how that connects to your own practice, sharing in a way that adds to the sense of connection with others and helps the group to spiral deeper into connecting. And it's crosstalk if you're turning outward to suggest what you think someone else should do somehow. So that's hopefully that's a helpful way of delineating the two things a little bit. We have a list of expectations and norms that help us to keep this container in our groups that we wanted to share with you today. And Olivia, would you be able to put that in the chat? There's a PDF with more detail in that Olivia is going to link to, but this is a slide with a summary. But what I would say is before signing up to a 10-step program, to just have a look at the expectations and norms and just check in with yourself about whether or not this is something that you would be happy to agree to before coming along. And I've spoken to some of these things already, but just to read through, a 10-step program is a peer support, not a therapeutic space. You're asked to minimize distractions and side conversations in order to stay present and listen deeply. We ask you to protect the anonymity and vulnerable shares of everyone, including the facilitators, because the facilitators also participate and share. That we recognize that the polycrisis is complex and our emotional responses are going to be complex as well, and that we'll have a full range of experience in response to that. And that if feelings do at times feel too difficult or overwhelming, or that you feel in crisis, that you will seek the support of a mental health professional in some way, because the facilitators aren't there as mental health professionals. We ask you to engage in active and deep listening rather than ranting, advice giving, or crosstalk, as we've already mentioned. And just to talk about angry feelings a little bit, which are very welcome in the space because they're going to be inevitable. We ask when anger arises that we use I statements about our own experience, what it is that we're experiencing, rather than blaming others or moving into kind of ranting about and blaming another thing or another person. And part of that is being able to listen with compassion and curiosity to ourselves as well as other people. We've got cultivating love and support focused on collective grief and trauma and systems disruption. So there's a recognition here about how we're in this together. We're all experiencing these feelings. You are asked as part of our expectation norms to know that practices are an invitation and therefore you do not have to do them if they don't feel right for you, and to practice some self-care around that. That when you speak from the heart, limit sharing to a few minutes at a time, and before sharing twice, create space for everyone else to speak. We ask you to bring some awareness of power and privilege into the space, but how that is for you, how you've been impacted by it, how you might bring it into the space, and along with an intention to minimize harm. We request that people aren't scapegoating or discriminating in any way, in their shares. And that you will be, just to know and agree that you'll be held accountable for upholding these expectations and norms by the facilitators throughout the sessions. Not to share any written materials without permission, and that Good Grief Network aren't responsible for the distress that arises. So that's the summary. Do, as I say, take time to read through the more detailed version of that. And if anybody's got any questions about that at the end, you're really welcome to ask. So what a 10-step program is and isn't. It is a brave emergent space to listen to our eco distress and what it might be telling us. It isn't a place to cure eco distress. And just to say that we don't see eco distress as a pathology or an individual problem. Rather, we see it as our nervous systems responding to the collective predicament and offering us information about that. And so as part of the 10-step program, we are reflecting on our own feelings, their location within our worldviews, our location within all the narratives and systems that we're part of, and then responding to ourselves with compassion and to others with compassion in order that we can go act into the world in a heart-centered and sustainable way. So this is what we're trying to eke out on this slide. You know, we're learning ways of being with the heavy, uncomfortable and painful feelings that arise and developing heart-centered generative responses in the service of community and transformation, which includes untangling and deconstructing narratives of the dominant culture in order that we can connect and reimagine. And we're doing that in community. And what we're not doing is trying to take away any difficult feelings or cure them in some way. We're not discussing or debating solutions, providing fixes, advice, or etc. We're trying to convince anyone else of our beliefs or we're not offering psychotherapy. And I'm going to pass on to Olivia to move us through the next bit.
Thank you so much, Becky, for sharing all of that. So here we have the logistics specifically for the two 10-step programs GGN will be offering in April. So GGN prides itself on offering small group sessions for our heart-centered work, which means the groups are capped at a size of 15 people, including the facilitators. The groups will meet once a week for 2 hours, except for that first session. The first session typically lasts 2.5 hours because it is that container building session to establish trust amongst the group. And all of these meetings will take place virtually over Zoom. The facilitators are wonderful and will always send out a weekly email sharing resources for the week, covering the step that will be discussed, and including that all-important Zoom meeting link. So it is truly all sent to you. So it's right there. It's easy to hop on. It's important to note, even though these sessions do occur over Zoom, they are not recorded out of respect of everyone's privacy. The cost of the program, we are proud to offer a sliding scale. So we offer a solidarity rate at $350. The full rate is $550. And the redistribution rate, which helps support our scholarship programs, is $750. We also offer scholarships as well as work exchanges, which you can read more about in the sign up form that we have, but the scholarships are calculated off of the solidarity rate of $350. So we offer 25%, 50%, and 100% scholarships. There will be 2 sessions offered in April. The first one will happen on Tuesday, April 8th, start running from 4:30 to 6:30 Pacific time. And this group will be for helpers and healers. Though how you define that is completely open to you. We've had, everyone from parents to nurses, doulas, Reiki healers, veterinarians. Truly, it is, if you feel that this is the space for you, we welcome you into it. If that is not the session for you, or perhaps the timing does not align with your schedule, we will be offering a second program starting Sunday, April 13th, and it will run from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern. And this is a program for everyone. I will highlight, please check your time zones. We are offering them in two different ones because that's just what we call our anchor time based on our facilitators who are running the program. And in the sign up forms, which I will be sharing in a moment, we include a link to a tool that you can use to double check your time zone. So we highly recommend using that to make sure it fits with your schedule. I will also flag here that if you are thinking about a scholarship, the priority consideration for those for the first session, so for the session for helpers and healers, the priority consideration is March 26th, which is this Wednesday. It will close in the morning, and then April 2nd for our second program, respectively. Just to note, this is not a hard deadline. It's just in order to be able to give all the scholarships the time and review that they need, we highly encourage everyone to apply before that, so that we have enough time to review. Any submitted after that date, we just can't guarantee that they will be reviewed before the program starts. So yeah, that's kind of the overview of the 10-step logistics. And we have a couple more things to share, and then we can move into the question section. Thank you, Becky. So these are some of the testimonials of the programs. I will say for myself, so I am currently, I will be on step 10 of, I'm in a program, working through a program right now. I will say it has been deeply, deeply helpful for me. I definitely, there's a lot of different folks who like come into these programs depending on where they're at. We have some folks who are alums of previous 10-step programs and they come back because they feel the need for again, and others who have never been through it before. And I know for me, it's been a really wonderful way to kind of take a pause. There's so much going on in the world, and I definitely, like my background, how I was like, it was really hard to take a pause. Like I was just like, oh, everything, there's so much going on in the world. Like I need to work harder. There's too many problems, not enough time to find solutions. So that's where I was at. But it's been incredibly, um, I don't know, just very fulfilling to be able to step into this group every week, connect with this group. It is, I will say it's like, I was even surprised at how connecting it was being virtual in this room. It's really lovely. We always offer, we call it a parking lot at the end of the session. And, in the case if this was meeting in person, how you would walk out to your cars or walk out to the bus with people and you'd connect. We offer that virtually at the end of every session. So if you are connecting with folks, you can always debrief after. And I can speak that the facilitators are absolutely incredible. So happy to answer more questions later on, but just wanted to speak for myself. It's been um, very, like, incredibly rewarding to be a part of the group.
Just to thank you, Olivia. Had you finished? I just wanted to check. Yeah, okay. Another quote here from Parker Palmer from The Courage to Teach. If we want to support each other's inner lives, we must remember a simple truth. The human soul does not want to be fixed. It wants simply to be seen and heard. If we want to see and hear a person's soul, there is another truth we must remember. The soul is like a wild animal, tough, resilient, and yet shy. When we go crashing through the woods shouting for it to come out so we can help it, the soul will stay in hiding. But if we're willing to sit quietly and wait for a while, the soul may show itself.
Thank you for sharing that, Becky. Um, Before we head into our Q&A, we just want to share some resources. If you are interested in doing a deeper dive into the 10 steps, we highly recommend reading the book that is built to mirror them. This is How to Live in a Chaotic Climate, 10 Steps to Reconnect with Ourselves, Our Communities, and Our Planet, written by our co-founder, Laura Schmidt. And I will I'm dropping some links for the 10-step programs and where to sign up. And I'll also share the link on where you can find the book on our website and more information on it. here. Thank you, Becky. And we also encourage everyone to connect with us via our social media channels, as well as our newsletter. This is truly the best way to stay up to date on our programmings. If we still have spots for scholarship programs, this is also just a really great way to stay connected during the chaos of these times. I always joke when I'm scrolling and I come across like a GGN post, it almost reminds me to take a breath in the never-ending feed of what we see in today's world. So highly recommend connecting through us with one of these channels. Thanks, Becky.
Got an opportunity now for any questions. If anybody has any, that yeah, please do let us know. And Olivia and I will do our best to answer them. There's a question in the chat. Thank you, Sami. How often for everyone courses offered if we might not be able to attend the April session? Thank you. They are, we offer sets of 10-step programs around about 3 times a year. So I think after the April ones, we will definitely have some available in the autumn through to the festive season. And it's possible that there'll be others between now and then, but they're not we'd have to work that out. So they're about 2 or 3 times a year. I hope that helps.
Yes, and I recommend signing up for the newsletter, and that's the last link in the previous message I sent. That is usually the best way to stay the most up to date. We will share the registration there, or if we at least know when the dates are announced for the fall programs, they will be usually shared there first.
Right.
I see another question in the chat. Thank you for sending this in. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah, Hillary. So Hillary is asking, I'm curious if facilitator training starts with the 10 steps or if there's another program for those who are curious about moving forwards being a facilitator. Do you want to take this one, Becky?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the question. We run flow facilitation training as a separate program. We're in the middle of running that at the moment, and there'll be another one towards the end of the year. We ask people to preferably do a 10-step program before doing the facilitation training, or if not, to as part of the kind of process of becoming a fully fledged, for want of a better word, flow facilitator, we'd ask you to then do one of our 10-step programs after the fact. So yeah, it's not part of the training. In the sense that you don't run through a 10-step program as part of the training. However, each of the 10 steps is addressed as part of the training from the perspective of facilitation. If you're curious about facilitation training, at some point there'll be another information session about that before we launch the next set of those. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Okay. Great, thank you. We've got a question. Thank you. Oh, follow-up. Thank you from Sammy. But for non-profit serving children, I think it's stuff that benefits so much from GGN ideas, even knowing it exists. You offer larger scale trainings, one time or series for organizations. That is a really good question. I think that is possible. We're a small team and with a limited capacity, but if there was an invitation to offer training to a particular organization, please do get in touch with us and we could talk about it, because I think it is something that we would be happy to offer if we can make it work. So yeah, please contact us about that. it would be great to hear more about what exactly you would need and want from that, if that helps to answer that question.
I can share a link. We have a form about like working with us, so I will message that directly.
Oh, great. Yeah. Thank you, Olivia. Shannon, there's a couple of other questions in, let me just check. Okay. Pamela, I'll come back to your question shortly as well, just so that you know that I haven't forgotten it. Shannon, did you want to ask a question?
My question is very similar to Pamela's, actually,
Okay.
whether to take the helper healing to apply for that one or the one for everyone if I work in a nonprofit healing space, even if it's not explicitly focused on climate, if it would still be appropriate.
So you just to clarify, you're asking if your line of work isn't specifically related to climate, but you identify as a helper or healer?
Yes, thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Absolutely, yes, it would be an approach. It would be a great place for you to come. And Pamela asked who'll be leading the helper and healer group and what are their backgrounds. Two people who identify as helpers and healers are running that program. It's run by our flow facility, get my words right, flow facilitators, Kirk and Karen, who their names are on the sign up form, aren't they, Olivia, I think. And they're both flow facilitators, also with backgrounds of helping and healing. Does that answer your question okay, Pamela? Great. Thank you. Anybody else got any more questions? Okay, great. Well, if you do think of any questions afterwards, should we put our hello@email address in the chat as well, in case anybody wants to ask anything afterwards? But also, all the information is in the oh, actually, there's a slide with all the ways to connect with us as well, isn't there? But yeah, and all the information is in the drop forms too. Thank you, Pamela. Thanks for being here. Is there a timer for shares? There's another question there. Thank you. Do you mean do we time them for our concept program? Hmm. If you could say a bit more about your question, I might be able to answer it. A timer to help people condense their thoughts. Do you mean like a timer on the screen or a timer? Like, yeah, I'm not sure that I'm following that question. Yeah, would you be able to say a little bit more? I'm sorry that I don't understand quite what that means. Sometimes there's a timer. We do ask people, if it helps to know, the facilitators do keep time, if that's what you're referring to. So if at some point, if like the 3-minute mark passes, for example, somebody will raise a hand, and then at that point we ask people to finish up what they're saying, so people are kind of given a sense of what that time is, if that's what you mean. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry I didn't follow you straight away. Yeah. So we do keep time for people. Yeah. Yeah, it is a bit difficult to explain in writing, isn't it? Right. Well, thank you for your questions, everybody. Is there anything else anybody wants to ask? Yeah, you're really welcome. Okay, wonderful. Thank you for your time. It's been great to meet you all. Thank you.